Thrillers in the 80s loved lies, obsession, and moral decay, but some went further. These films did not reward heroes or punish villains cleanly. They ended in emotional wreckage where survival felt hollow and truth arrived too late. What follows are 8 brutal 80s thrillers where victory is meaningless and everyone loses something essential. These are stories that refuse comfort and leave scars long after the final frame. Number 8. Blowout, 1981. Blowout opens with the promise that truth still matters. A sound technician accidentally records evidence of a political assassination and believes exposing it will restore order. What unfolds instead is a slow, methodical dismantling of that belief. Every step toward the truth only tightens the trap around him. Institutions meant to protect justice become tools of erasure. Media spectacle replaces accountability. Evidence becomes entertainment rather than salvation. The film builds tension through obsession rather than action. The protagonist sacrifices sleep, relationships, and safety chasing proof that no one wants revealed. When the truth finally surfaces, it arrives stripped of power. It cannot save the innocent or punish the guilty. It only exists as a soundbite divorced from consequence. The final moments deliver one of the most devastating conclusions of the decade. Survival is reduced to a cruel irony where success becomes personal annihilation. No character escapes untouched. The victim remains dead. The villain walks away hidden. The hero lives with knowledge that means nothing. Blowout ends by declaring that in a world driven by noise, truth can still scream and yet be ignored. Everyone loses because meaning itself has been hollowed out. Number 7. Body Heat, 1981. Body Heat disguises its cruelty beneath seduction and sweat-soaked glamour. At first, it plays like a classic noir revival driven by desire and arrogance. But beneath the heat lies a precise psychological execution. Characters believe they are manipulating each other when in reality they are being positioned for total ruin. The central relationship is built entirely on deception. Trust is never real. Love is a weapon. Every decision made in passion becomes a brick in a carefully constructed trap. By the time the truth emerges, it is too late for justice or redemption. The law fails. Morality dissolves. What remains is a victor who gains freedom but loses humanity, and a victim who survives only to realize his life was never his own. The ending is not explosive. It is cold and surgical. The audience understands the truth moments before the characters do, which makes the realization even more punishing. No one walks away intact. One character gains everything materially but is spiritually empty. Another lives with irreversible loss and humiliation. Body Heat closes by proving that intelligence offers no protection against manipulation and desire is the most dangerous liability of all. The win belongs to no one because the cost is absolute corruption. Number 6. The Vanishing, 1988. The Vanishing is not a thriller about rescue. It is a thriller about obsession and the unbearable need for answers. When a woman disappears without explanation, her partner cannot let go. Years pass, yet the mystery consumes him completely. The film refuses shortcuts. It shows how unresolved trauma rots the soul slowly and thoroughly. The antagonist is terrifying precisely because he is ordinary. His calm, rational cruelty dismantles the fantasy that evil announces itself. The promise he offers is knowledge. The price is everything. When the truth is finally revealed, it arrives without spectacle or mercy. It does not bring closure. It delivers annihilation. There is no heroic confrontation, no last-second escape. The final act unfolds with horrifying inevitability. The protagonist achieves his goal and immediately understands that some answers destroy the questioner. The villain gains validation rather than punishment. The disappeared remains lost forever. The Vanishing ends with silence and darkness rather than music or resolution. It is a film where curiosity becomes a death sentence and evil wins simply by being patient. Everyone loses because the universe offers no moral correction, only consequences. Number 5. Fatal Attraction, 1987. Fatal Attraction is often remembered as a thriller about obsession, but its real horror lies in what survives after the violence ends. This is not a story where balance is restored or lessons are learned cleanly. It is a portrait of damage that cannot be reversed once the boundary is crossed. A single reckless decision fractures multiple lives, and the film never pretends those fractures can heal. The antagonist is portrayed as unstable, but the film refuses to let the audience dismiss her as simply evil. Her breakdown is fueled by isolation, denial, and desperation. When she is removed, the problem does not disappear. It merely becomes unspoken. The protagonist remains alive but stripped of certainty. His home becomes a place of fear rather than comfort. His marriage continues but now rests on trauma rather than trust. The final confrontation may eliminate the immediate threat, but it offers no emotional release. The family unit survives in form only. Every relationship has been altered permanently. Silence replaces intimacy. Safety replaces honesty. What looks like victory is actually containment. Fatal Attraction ends by asserting that some mistakes do not end when the danger is gone, they linger invisibly shaping behavior, memory, and identity. No one escapes untouched. One life is destroyed outright. Others continue carrying the weight. Everyone loses because survival itself becomes the punishment. Number 4. No Way Out. 1987. No Way Out is a thriller built on the idea that truth has no inherent power. It exists only as a tool to be controlled, redirected, or erased. The film traps its protagonist inside a system where innocence is irrelevant and survival depends on adaptability rather than morality. As the investigation tightens, every option leads to exposure. The closer the truth comes to daylight, the more dangerous it becomes. The institutions meant to protect order instead reshape reality to preserve themselves. Evidence becomes leverage, loyalty becomes a liability. The ending delivers a revelation that feels like escape, but quickly curdles into something darker. The truth is acknowledged yet immediately weaponized. Justice is not served, it is repurposed. The system absorbs the scandal and continues unchanged. The survivor remains alive, but only by becoming part of the mechanism that nearly destroyed him. Those who believed in integrity are discarded. Those who understood power endure. The film offers no heroic stand, only quiet assimilation. The cost of survival is moral surrender. No Way Out concludes with a chilling certainty. The maze has no exit because it was never designed to be escaped. Everyone loses because even the winner must abandon who they were to remain standing. Number 3. To Live and Die in L.A. 1985. This film announces its worldview early and never retreats. Authority here is reckless. Justice is obsession. Morality is optional. The story follows law enforcement figures who mirror the criminals they pursue until the distinction becomes meaningless. The narrative builds momentum toward an abrupt rupture that redefines the film entirely. A central figure is removed without warning or ceremony. There is no payoff, no redemption, no meaning. The story simply continues in his absence as if lives are interchangeable pieces. The aftermath is colder than the death itself. The mission persists, stripped of purpose. The replacement protagonist inherits an empty pursuit driven by procedure rather than belief. The villain is eliminated but nothing is restored. The loss has hollowed out the story, leaving only motion without meaning. The ending denies closure. Justice is technically achieved yet emotionally void. No lesson is learned. No balance returns. The system absorbs the damage and moves forward unchanged. To Live and Die in L.A. ends as a rejection of cinematic comfort. Death is random. Survival is hollow. Authority produces only replacements. Everyone loses because nothing improves and no sacrifice matters. Number 2. Jagged Edge, 1985. Jagged Edge operates entirely on doubt. It is a thriller where truth is never stable, and trust is the most dangerous risk a character can take. From its opening moments, the film invites the audience to question appearances, while quietly demonstrating how easily intelligence can be manipulated. The courtroom becomes a stage rather than a place of justice. Testimony is performance. Evidence is selective. Charm becomes a weapon as powerful as any knife. The central relationship thrives on uncertainty, with attraction and suspicion feeding into each other until they are impossible to separate. The closer intimacy grows, the more exposed and vulnerable one side becomes. When the truth finally reveals itself, it does not arrive with triumph or relief. It lands like a private execution. Justice technically occurs, but emotionally it devastates the survivor. The realization is not simply that deception occurred, but that belief itself was exploited. Professional competence offers no protection against calculated intimacy. The ending leaves the protagonist alive yet fundamentally altered. Trust is no longer possible. Confidence has been replaced by vigilance. The legal system functions, but human connection collapses entirely. Jagged Edge closes on emotional isolation rather than victory. The villain is stopped, but the damage cannot be undone. Everyone loses because certainty is destroyed, and belief becomes a liability that can never safely return. Number 1. The Hitcher, 1986. The Hitcher is a nightmare built on inevitability. From its opening moments, it makes one promise and never breaks it. There is no escape. There is no reasoning. There is no version of this story where anyone comes out whole. What begins as a chance encounter on an empty highway quickly becomes a lesson in absolute powerlessness. The antagonist is not motivated by money, revenge, or ideology. He exists to prove a single point: that morality is fragile and that innocence can be dismantled step by step. He does not chase his victim in the traditional sense. He orchestrates situations, forcing impossible choices, and then watches as the consequences destroy everything around him. Law enforcement fails repeatedly. Authority is outmatched. Every attempt at rescue only increases the body count. The protagonist survives physically but is psychologically dismantled. Every ally he finds is punished. Every moment of hope is weaponized against him. By the time the confrontation reaches its end, the question is no longer whether he will live, but what kind of person he will be if he does. The final act delivers grim resolution rather than victory. The threat is neutralized, but the damage is absolute. Lives have been erased. Trust in institutions has collapsed. The road ahead offers no healing, only continuation. Survival feels accidental, not earned. The Hitcher ends by stripping away the fantasy that endurance equals triumph. Evil does not need motive. Justice does not arrive in time. Those caught in its path are changed forever. These thrillers did not believe in clean endings or moral reward. They exposed a decade obsessed with power, desire, and control by showing what happens when those forces collapse inward. In these stories, survival offers no comfort and truth brings no relief. Justice exists only on paper while the damage lingers. That is why these films still haunt, because in the end, no one truly wins.